Well, good morning, everyone. Last week, we were looking at God's sovereignty over all of creation and his sovereignty over the human heart through the plagues and through Pharaoh. This is God's answer to who is the Lord that Pharaoh challenged him with. And it's really the answer to the most important question we could ever ask. Who is God? He is the one who is sovereign over all of creation and sovereign over the human heart. We talked about how this brings a tension in our minds, though. If God is sovereign over everything, including the human heart, why are we still responsible for our actions? And I use the illustration of the human heart being kind of like a nuclear reactor. God removes his common grace, like removing the control rods from a nuclear reactor. And just like he did with Pharaoh, and therefore the sin of our hearts just takes over and we harden against him naturally. Yet, as I conceded last week, this is only a partial answer. We cannot work out the whole answer completely. It's what's called a paradox. Even Paul couldn't work it out. Go read Romans chapter 9 after this is over, and you will see that even he can't work it out, even as he uses Pharaoh as one of his examples in that passage of God's sovereignty. You see, we need to be humble enough to admit and realize that this is something we cannot understand fully. You know, there are a number of things, a number of rules that Mama Rollo and I have with Gabriel and Corbin that they don't really get yet because they can't understand them. For example, Corbin is a little daredevil, and we have a rule that he should not jump off of anything higher than his knees, at least onto hard ground. That's because his knees are still developing, and jumping off things that are too high and doing that too frequently will hinder his development and cause him problems later on. Yet Corbin can't really understand that idea of later on. All he thinks about is, but it doesn't hurt me, Dad. At least in the moment, because in the moment, it's not actually causing him any pain. Yet I tell him that he needs to trust me and obey the rule. What I want for him as a parent is for him to think, well, I don't get this, but I do know that my dad loves me. So I guess I'll follow the rule and obey it anyways. Now, that's not incredibly realistic because he is a sinful person just like me. Yet that is what I want for him as a parent. And I'm sure your parents have rules that are similar with you guys. Now, they're going to be probably more complicated than don't jump off something too high because you guys are older and wiser than Corbin. But the principle is the same. They want you to trust their love with the rules of the things that they truly understand better than you, but you don't really understand that well yet. And yes, there are things that they understand better than you, even though being a teenager makes you think that you know everything. God is our heavenly Father, and the same is true with us and him. As modern people, we like to think that if we study something long enough and hard enough, we can understand everything, that there's no limit to our natural ability and our knowledge. Yet that's simply not true. There are things that we cannot understand because God has chosen not to reveal them to us. Listen to Deuteronomy 29:29. The secret things belong to the Lord, our God, but the things that are revealed belong to us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of his law. So God's basically saying there are secret things that belong to him only, and this tension between his sovereignty and human responsibility is one of those things. We have to trust the heart of our Heavenly Father. We have to trust that even though we can't understand that, he has given enough for us to live the Christian life just fine. And he has. That's what Deuteronomy 29:21 tells us, that the stuff he has revealed to us is enough for us to follow him, to follow his law. Kids, this is, and what greater demonstration of this, kids, could we have than Jesus coming and dying for us to take the punishment of our sin? What greater demonstration of God's love for us could we have than that? That's why we need the gospel every day. When we look at what Jesus did for us, we can start to say to God, God, I don't really understand this. And I want to understand this. But I guess I can trust you right now because I know you love me because you sent Jesus for me. So help me to trust you. Help me to rest and live in that trust, even though I really, really, really want to understand this right now. Help me to trust you as a small child trusts his parents with childlike faith. So you guys think about that, and I'll see you again tomorrow.